So, what's our agenda for today? I just want to give you a short overview on what's new in WebOffice, starting with our releases, so press releases, homepage, and also, of course, the user manual and changelog, and then walk you through the highlight features that are new in Core Client, Flex Client, further new features. Um, and then in the second part, I of course want to give you all the information you need for an upgrade to WebOffice 10.9, where we want to have a little deep dive, tech deep dive into a question that may occur when you plan to update your system with WebOffice 10.9. So give you a little detailed information there. And of course, in the end, I want to give you a short view on our roadmap, where we want to highlight what are the next steps in the WebOffice development and um, what is it that you can feel happy for waiting for it, what we are working on for the rest of the year and the beginning of next year. All right, so let's jump right in and have an overview. As always with WebOffice, when we have a new release, um, when you're a subscriber to our RSS feed on the homepage, you will get the news feed if you are just having a look at it. Of course, in the news section, you will get the news article. If you haven't subscribed so far, please do that. It's very easy, and you will be up to date with the latest WebOffice information for sure. But the news section is an overview, like the highlight features and the basic information on where to download the software. But a release has much more to it, and that usually can be found in the WebOffice user manual. WebOffice user manual will look significantly different to what you are used to when you are a WebOffice customer using 10.8 or prior. So we have rebranded the whole user manual to unique Vertiges CI that all of our products now share. But the functionality is pretty much the same, which of course is that we still use the same documenting software than we used before. So you can still use search and the navigation and everything like that. One thing to mention, um, the current news and the current extensions are always only visible in the current manual version. So if you want to get the news information on what's in 10.9, please look up the actual user manual. The older versions are still viewable, but please refer always to the updated version. And very important in here, we have put a link into the slide that we will share after the webcast, is the chapter for the upgrade process. So later on, I will focus on that, and of course, there are some steps to follow if you want to upgrade to the latest WebOffice version. So, what are good reasons to upgrade? The WebOffice core client, our power user client, is further extended. And one thing we have seen great adaption in the last month is the split screen view of 2D and 3D. It's a perfect example of WebOffice integrating with the ArcGIS platform using the web scene viewer technology from Esri. And as we can see here in the upcoming video, it's at your fingertips. It's very easy for an end user to just open a tool from the toolbar and get a 2D and a 3D information next to each other. Working in the 2D left-hand side and 3D right-hand side viewer is synchronizing the other part. So as we are switching the web scene on the right-hand side, from the imagery in Graz here to the city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, you will see on the left-hand side the update of the map will show up in a second. And since we are not in a 2D but a 3D view, you will recognize on the left-hand side that we now have an indicator on what we see. And we can use the tools on the right-hand side that give additional information that you can only have in 2D, in 3D and not in 2D. And there's new features to it. Again, as you know, the profile lines that you can do in WebOffice before, you can have them in 3D as well today. And as we can see here, also in the screenshot on the right-hand side, you will get a 3D view of the profile. So a very good indicator on what you have cut through in your scene as it could be in your map as well. But of course, it's not only the integration with the Esri features we are looking at. Of course, we have built-in functionality as well. And one functionality we've seen great adoption of since ever is the data integration and extraction features. So for data integration, we added new capabilities here. As you know, the Add Data tool in the WebOffice core client, we now have new formats here. As you can see in the descriptive text here, we now support the KML and KMZ file extensions as well. So if your users share information using Google Earth or similar formats, so KML and KMZ is now an OGC standard, you can also use it in WebOffice and upload your information. As always, it's going to be a full layer during that session. So you can use it in the table of contents, you can search for it, you can select it, you can copy it to your database using the editing tool. You can put it in a state and recall it with the next session. So it's a full upload layer coming from your Google Earth and can be integrated into WebOffice. Another feature we have been asked for since sometimes, also through our platform WebOffice Ideas, is that users want to scroll through the WebOffice table of contents and start a query right away from here. Or a second one that we have been hearing through some time now is that they want to open an attribute table, which basically is a query against a layer with no restriction, right? With no definition query. So what you can do now as an administrator is that you can have a predefined query where you have the defaults already in place, like with a one-click query, and then add this submit search from TOC functionality here. And as we have this functionality enabled, the end user in the table of contents will be capable of starting the query right away and open a search result, which can be the whole attribute table or a pretty much restricted attribute table, as you as an administrator are happy with it to provide it to your users. And of course, it's a full search result, so the end user can go from here wherever he's used to go after querying for a specific feature. For the core client, the power user client, of course, is kind of our flagship. But what we see in the last years is that the Flex client that has been merged together with the former mobile client is starting to emerge from a view and information client to a full working client. So full working clients means we have them for field workers today, as well as for workers that don't have a training but work on their workstations with a browser and a mouse. And of course, they sometimes also need more functionality. So as I have introduced with the KML and KMZ upload, I said the data transaction, so upload and download, are used very heavily. And this is the example on the other way around. So we no extract server in WebOffice since some time for extracting vector and raster data. And now we are able to provide that functionality also to our not so much power users, but field workers or users that don't have a training with an easy to use interface. So the functionality is very close to what we have in Core Client, but the usability is much easier. So you still have access to your export profiles. They support the different file types coming from the three categories: GIS, CAD, or raster. We support different projections compared to the actual project. We support the snapping. We support, of course, also the easy and just export my current extent functionality, and that the end user is able to provide the file name that the download package is going to have. So the tool is as you are used to it in the WebOffice Flex client. You open it from the extended toolbar. If the administrator is configuring it in the extended toolbar, you can have it in the first toolbar as well if you want to. And then you draw a polygon and get your settings going. So have a look at the video. It's just that easy. Open the extract tool. Start drawing right away. On the left-hand side, you can provide the settings you're interested in, and you're good to go and can download the zip file. As you know from WebOffice Flex, we have this download container concept where all the downloaded features are presented. You're able to do that right away. Of course, this is not only here for the GIS data. We can also look in here and see that it's also here for the raster data. So this is the export profiles. And I just want to give you a hint at the user interface on the map. In here, we're using the crosshair. So this is the functionality you would typically use when you're on a mobile device where you're using with finger gestures instead of a mouse to be very precise without having the map behind your fingers. So the crosshair can be enabled and can be used, but if you prefer the mouse clicks, you're good to go as well. Just a setting as an administrator for your end users. And there's, of course, also an option in Core Client that we also took over to Flex Client, which is an integration into a query and then extract workflow. So if you're having a search result in Flex, which, as you know, is always a single result, you are good to go for the WebOffice export. For example, in here on the screenshot and now in the video, you can see that when we are querying, for example, for an existing parcel, we have our hierarchical cascading query. We are looking for the district, we are looking for the plot number, we are happy with our result, and then we want to export the boundary of that plot to GIS data or to CAD data to share it with our colleagues that potentially have a desktop GIS or an AutoCAD or whatever CAD viewer to use it. Just some comments on that. Those functionality are on the search result, not on the map tip. So you can use it from a query or from the identify tool. And in this case, we are exporting them right away in the projection in the CRS we are using in the map display at that specific moment. But very nice integration into a specific workflow. You've seen the download center, and the good thing at the download center is it worked with the print outputs, the e-papers, and the extracts at the same time. So at any state of your session, you can come back to your download container and revisit everything you have produced and downloaded. Of course, we are also not only working on creating new functionalities or bring functionality from core to Flex client. We are of course also looking into let's say minor improvements, but important improvements. So this is basically the part where we have a close look into our WebOffice ideas platform, and there we see that features were requested called, for example, I want to have this zoom to coordinates feature in a specific manner where I can also work with different map projections and everything like that. So in the first screenshot here on the slide, you can see that this tool is now available in Flex as well. A second feature, a very tiny one, but a very helpful one when you are working with an iPhone, is a setting that a print output opens in an extra tab. Because working with headless browsers, so having bookmarks on the home screen from an iPhone just gives you the pain that when a different tab is opened, you can't really go back to your browser state. So this will prevent this misbehavior here, and we have this functionality now introduced in Flex. Has been there before in mobile, now also in Flex. And since we introduced the table of contents for Flex as well in a previous release, we now also support the URL parameter that you might know from Core Client, that with the call starting, you can decide if the talk is initially opened or is collapsed, or basically the tool menu is not opened at the startup. And the same is true for the geolocation. So that's also something you can define on calling a project if you want to have your map starting at the position where you are right now, which makes sense for field workers out in the field, or if you want to start it with an overview on the initial extent, which makes sense for the worker in the back office. Both make sense. We don't want to have a strict setting. We only want to have a default, and you can overrule it using the URL parameter. Further new features that are not tied to Core or Flex or whatsoever. We've been working closely together with our colleagues from the desktop and GeoOffice development team, and of course also from the ProOffice team, to integrate these three applications very closely together. And since a couple of years, there had been this technology of the so-called GeoOffice integrator that used Internet Explorer functionality. And as we all know, Internet Explorer is not a supported browser anymore. So we decided to redesign that integrator from the ground, from the shells, and the GeoOffice Integrator 2021 has been introduced in Q2, and is able to work with WebOffice and ProOffice. This integration does no longer need any Internet Explorer 11 functionalities, and now it's very easy to pass over search results and selections from WebOffice to GeoOffice and back, as well as to work integrated with GeoOffice and ProOffice, so you have the full triangle working, since, as you remember, we integrate into ProOffice from the WebOffice side using the map widget. Integrator is an open technology. It's not tied to the Vertige's product family. So we've already seen integration into partner software in the Austrian municipality market, but it's basically the very open standard we are supporting here, and using the Microsoft Edge Web View to control these integration into these partner solutions were very easy, and this is something we could also see in different solutions from other partners or customers as well. So if you have questions there, please contact us on the support channel, and we're happy to help. An application we've been using since ever in WebOffice, the WebOffice user management admin web interface for the administrators, has a self-registration page since several years. And we see a lot of adoption of this concept that there is no administrator in the backend creating new users on an email request or whatever. We want to provide a self-registration page. As we have introduced it since we did that, this functionality is growing and growing and growing. And it's again, with WebOffice 10.9, we have new information for a specific user and user type, and new properties to set, new functionality. So please have a look into our user manual if you're using that functionality. It really is very, very powerful right now. Security. So coming from user management, of course, why we use user management, not everyone is supposed to see everything. And that's specifically true for people that have interest to harm, when we talk about real security in terms of security standards and secure coding. So we are, as always, listening to the OWASP standards, the Open Web Application Security Project, and there are recommendations there how to harden your software. So we have new capabilities here in the application configuration and the security. If you don't know that, please take a look into that. It's very, very important that you are aware of all the features and functionality WebOffice can give your installation to harden it against harming users. And with the this security configuration specifically added, we can provide content security directives, which basically make it very, very hard to attack your WebOffice instance. So please have a look at that, and also to the additional settings we have here, not only the new ones. WebOffice Author Standalone. So as I suppose you're a GIS administrator when you're listening to that webcast here, we are this is your tool that you're working with most of the time, not with the clients itself. And of course, we want to provide as much functionality and flexibility and performance as we can. So we're constantly improving. One thing we saw as necessary is that you have active projects and that you have projects you are working on, but that they are not shared today. So if that's something you're doing in the environment, you want to use our backup folders for that. So with WebOffice Author Standalone, you now have the functionality to define those active and inactive projects within the UI, and you can very easily and intuitively from the open projects menu just switch over to the activation deactivation. You see basically the same interface, but now you also see the inactive projects, and you can switch them over from the one side to the other, and then you will find them back in the open menu, or you will not find them again. And basically what that does is that on screen it will um, uh, it will cut it and paste it from one folder to the other. All right. So as said, we have a bunch of new features, and again, this is just a snapshot. Please have a look at the user manual in our documentation. And speaking of the documentation, of course, please have a look at the upgrade documentation part. If you want to go to WebOffice 10.9, and this is what we recommend, not only because of the features you've just seen, but we also ship bug fixes with it. And of course, there is functionality in there under the hood about stability and performance, as always. We just want to have you a close look at your whole environment. So if you want to update to WebOffice 10.9, you don't necessarily need to upgrade your ArcGIS environment as well. So with WebOffice 10.9, we are supporting ArcGIS 10.4 upwards. So just as a reminder, 10.3.1 and below has been retired from Esri, so we can support that as well. With 10.9, so ArcGIS 10.9, there are coming some specialities. This is why we call it let's say little restricted restricted use, and why is that? I will come to that in a minute. Our recommendation is, if you have no other reasons to upgrade to ArcGIS 10.9, stay on the long-term support release 10.8.1, and you can use WebOffice 10.9 with it, without any functional differences. So just from our perspective, so the WebOffice versions, we also have this product life cycle. You can look that up in our user manual, and it basically says that of today, or at least since our major release that has been at the end of June, we are having the two active versions, 10.8 and 10.9, where 10.9 is now instead as general availability. So we frequently provide patches, where 10.8 since June 21 is in the mature status. So we will provide security hotfixes and stuff like that. You can call support, but if we are having bug fixes and everything like that, you will need to upgrade first to 10.9 to have those bugs fixed or access to new functionality. Of course, the other technologies around WebOffice are evolving as well. So the supported internet browsers have changed. Please have a look at the user manual, what's true for WebOffice 10.9. So support for the Java versions, of course, always change. And for security reasons, we are keeping that very much up to date. So this is 11.0.12, which is now the supported Java version. We support Tomcat 9. We don't support Tomcat 8.5 anymore. We can support Tomcat 10 by now. We are working on that, and we'll be happy to give you that support as well in an upcoming release. But today it's Tomcat 9 and JDK 11.0.12 we support. So why did I say there's an asterisk to it in 10.9 with ArcGIS Server 10.9? The reason why is that WebOffice supports ArcGIS 10.9 only with restrictions, and please verify in advance if the requirements such as an additional server can be met. Why an additional server? Until now, on the left-hand side in the figure, you can see that we had typically a single host which we also enforced through the installer of our ArcGIS, of our WebOffice extensions, including the ArcGIS engine, or if you were just installing the extensions and had an ArcMap on it, we've always had the same versions here. So you had ArcGIS Server 10.8.1 and ArcMap 10.8.1, or you installed under the hood of our installer the ArcGIS engine 10.8.1, and everything worked in this scenario on a single host. Now that Esri, with the ArcGIS 2021 release, did upgrade ArcGIS Server to 10.9, but did not upgrade ArcMap and ArcGIS Engine from 10.8.1, it is just not possible to install both components on the same host. That's a restriction by Esri. So what we need to do now in this specific scenario, if we are kind of forced to do it because we want to have the ArcGIS server 10.9 capabilities, is we need an additional host which holds our WebOffice extensions. And as there have been several connections between the services on the server and the file directory, as well as the communication from the SOE to the extension through a port, we will need to make sure that we have a network drive, or at least a UNC shared drive on either machine that both can see, and an open firewall for the default port 12,000 to let those two components communicate with each other. So as we are stepping through that, we just want you to consider all the different steps in here that we need to, in this scenario, change the access permissions, change the default output directory on the ArcGIS server, adjust the SOE, the server object extension properties at the SYN output service, adjust the layout path for every component, so plot, ePaper, and extract server. There's also some parts inside the extract server configuration that needs to be considered, and those need to be changed as well. So basically, what we want to achieve is that everything that today is in ArcGIS server directories, and basically after producing it in the output folder, needs to be accessible from both sides. So we want to have the output directory referred to as from a UNC path, and therefore, if it's on the ArcGIS server itself, you can keep your ArcGIS server configuration in place, but in the SYN output service configuration, the output needs to change to that specific UNC path. As well as the SOE properties, not only the setting for the path is interesting, but as I said, there is also some communication through the ports. So typically by default, since it is all on the same machine, we would provide the default of localhost here. Now please enter the actual IP of your targeting machine, as well as the port. The port can stay where it is, but please make sure that there is no firewall or whatever security in the way of letting those two components communicate with each other. The next thing, of course, is that we want to make sure that both components have access to our templates. So that's true for plot, for ePaper, for extract server. Templates and layouts needs to be accessible from both sides. So again, put them on a network share, or at least if they are still on the ArcGIS server machine, do a sharing through a UNC sharing. Yeah, this is the same for ePaper, and this is the same for extract server. So basically, a very related but not a central but distributed setting we need to take care of for plot, ePaper, and extract server. And as said before, in the extract server case, we specifically need to also look into the connection files. So as you know, when you're an extract server user, we have those connection files that refer to the file geodatabases and the enterprise geodatabases. So those also, of course, needs to be accessible. So if there are any paths in here that are not accessible through UNC, please share them so that both components can see it. And of course, the configuration itself is something that is sometimes used in the specific configuration path. So the reference here from the configuration to the connection needs to be adapted as well. The extension itself typically is referred to by localhost. So if we are using it on a dedicated machine, please provide this dedicated IP as well. This has been kind of a tech deep dive and sounds complicated. I just wanted to make sure that it's obvious for everyone listening or reviewing this webcast that there is some steps to do. We know what the steps are. They are well documented, not only on the slides, but step by step in the user manual. It's doable, but you need an extra machine, an extra VM for it. So this is why we recommend to use WebOffice 10.9 with ArcGIS Server 10.8.1. If there are other reasons for you to upgrade your ArcGIS environment to 10.9, please have a close look into the documentation that you fulfill the requirements upfront. So last topic for today, until we come to the questions and answers section, of course, is that you want to know what's next in WebOffice and how the roadmap looks like. So as of today, we are in the very last week of Q3 from 2021. WebOffice 10.9 has been released at the very end of Q2. It has already some patches out there in the field you can use if you start your upgrade now. And we are heavily working on a first service pack for WebOffice 10.9, which will be called Service Pack 1. The targeted release date from our side is mid-November. Could change a little, but basically this is what we're targeting, and we are kind of in a good shape there. And the Service Pack 1 will be followed by another WebOffice release, which will come in either late Q1 or early Q2. We haven't decided today if this is going to be a major release or if it's going to be a Service Pack 2. There are some things around that will drive the decision here in the upcoming weeks. So we will provide an update on that. Nevertheless, what we can say today is that the version in early 2022 will have a support for ArcGIS 10.9.1, which again will be a long-term supported release from Esri. What are the highlight features and the key features we're working on right now? Please, as always, we are working on that. We will release it when they are ready, not when the time is there. So they should be in there. If they are not, they will be in a patch or service pack hereafter. there are numerous commissioned features as well as strategic developments that come from feedback that we have from you, from our customers, through all the channels we have. So from your managers, from support at the partner companies, or at our support, or from WebOffice ideas. And of course, we still are looking into improvements where we see the necessity to it. Yeah, as said, the naming for the Q1, Q2 release is not defined yet. It will support 10.9.1, and of course, as well, there will be features as well as bug fixes inside. Features coming from projects as well as from requests from your side through the mentioned channels. In Service Pack 1, we're hoping to release a feature for our Vertiges printing. Just a reminder, we're not talking about the plot extension. We are talking about printing the geoprocessing capability we've introduced several releases ago. And this stuff is really catching up. Like, it's fast, it's easy to integrate, and now we are going to have functionality that is unique to Vertiges printing, where in the print series functionality, where you draw a print matrix on the map and export it, you will be able to rotate that as well. We've seen that sharing of information is very crucial to many workflows. So as we have talked about upload KML and KMZ and download from Flex Client and things like that, there has always been a request for also sharing markups. So we've several years ago introduced the states, where you can share your project states throughout different clients, from core client to flex client, to share markups. But if someone else has a different application, for example, a desktop GIS or another GIS vendor, we are now also happy to provide a functionality to export drawings and measurements to GeoJSON objects that they can be shared with those. We will have additional functionality on the label feature tool in Core Client. There are several little changes to it that make the configuration and especially the usability much better. And in the WebOffice Flex Client, the drawing tool, which has been kind of limited, also due to restrictions from the usability, will get some rework that will cause better usability, more functionality, and the capability of drawing symbols and texts, which has not been there so far, so that you have a full markup experience in WebOffice Flex Client as well. So from my point of view, this is everything I wanted to share with you today. I'm very happy that you took the time to participate in our webcast here live, or that you have revisited the recording to it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the product management team using the email address on the slide, or of course to the team WebOffice through the support channel. Everyone's happy to help you out if it's around questions to upgrading your software, or just general questions on where's WebOffice going and what features you additionally need. We're very happy to talk to you. So on behalf of the whole WebOffice team, thanks a lot. And we can look into the Q&A section and see if there were any questions that have been answered or not been answered.
Thank you, Gunther. At the moment, we have no open questions to discuss. And we only have one question, which I already answered. The question was, do we have any plans to engage ArcGIS Pro? And my answer was that currently there are some restrictions in the use of ArcGIS Pro-based services, as we can read in our user manual. And maybe do you have, Gunther, anything to add to this topic?
Yeah, basically just recalling what you already answered. We encourage our GIS administrators to use ArcGIS Pro wherever possible. The map services are faster using the new ArcGIS Enterprise engine under the hood of ArcGIS Server. This is why you have access to new renderer types such as heat maps and things like that. So it's very good to use those map services, but we need to have a close look into your setup if we can use them everywhere. The restrictions Tom has been talking about are well documented in our user manual. So if you are refining some of your structures, it's very easy to get best of both, to have services that communicate with the server object extension, which still need the ArcMap runtime under the hood, and as well participate from the great performance and rendering capabilities of ArcGIS Pro using the new engine. So if you have questions around that cannot be answered through the user manual, feel free to reach out to us, and we will have a look together on your setup and give you a recommendation that is specifically for your system.
Okay, thank you, Gunther. So that's all at the moment.
All right, then, yeah, thanks everyone for the attention again, and happy to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.